This is Flipping Tables, a podcast about technology, gaming, and culture. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Edwards.
And I'm your other host, David Lyons.
And as always, you can find show notes at flippingtablespodcast.com. For this episode, add a 024 after the slash. And there's comments, there's show notes, there's other episodes. It's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
We do have some follow-up today. So there was some mishap with our RSS feed actually a couple weeks ago. And as I was tinkering with the new feed, it was sort of discovered that that was also a little bit messed up. So in any case, everything should be good now. If you are a subscriber from a long time ago, you probably have our feed burner feed, which is dead, which is why you're not hearing this. And you're back on episode 18 or something. But just head to our website and you can actually get the new RSS feed there.
Poor feed burner. They served such an important purpose in the world, and then Google was just like, eh.
Yeah, we're also unleashing a lot more social media on all of you, so that we're on Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus with separate Flipping Tables accounts now.
So you can follow us and the show as its own entity.
And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to post every episode to YouTube now.
Yes, which is apparently a thing.
Yeah. Apparently.
And I have to give you a little nod. So if you've never seen any of Mike's visual work, he gets down into the pixels and like moves things back and forth until they're exactly right. And the art behind the audio on YouTube is like, it's lovely.
So you have to at least go look at it.
You do.
Even if you don't listen.
Well, I think because you went in reverse order while you were...
Yeah.
And I think I was immediately sold by the McRib. Just this beautiful, like, 1080p McRib photograph behind the title.
There's not a lot of 1080p or better photos of the McRib to be found.
But you found one.
Yes.
It's great.
And it was one on a transparent background, so it was just the McRib.
So that's a composite image?
Yeah.
This is the amount of work that goes into this show. It is loving... If this was like a hipster startup, it would say like lovingly crafted in Denver.
Yep.
With a lot of emoji.
We need that tagline now.
We do.
Okay.
That'll be at the bottom in the footer. So you shared this Salon article with me about streaming services killing music, and it's not just killing music, it's killing everything except pop music, because streams are pay per stream, right? So like if you use Spotify, if you don't listen to any Bach, then the company that puts out that particular Bach mix doesn't get any money, right?
Right. Well, the interesting thing about this article is that pop music and the way classical and jazz and some other genres credit themselves, let's just say pop music is way simpler. It's Britney Spears, and here's the song.
Yes. Yeah,
and classical music, it's like, well, who conducted it, and who wrote it, and who's playing it, and like, which one do you refer to? Do you just want Bach, and you don't care who's conducting and who did this arrangement of it, and so forth. And so what this leads to on streaming services is a huge discoverability problem. Because you can't just say, yeah, check out the new Fleet Foxes, and then you figure it out.
And then there it is.
Yeah. And that it's basically making people disappear. They're like ghosts if you're not in a more mainstream genre.
Yeah, see, this is definitely an interesting problem, because with classical music, I mean, I'm not a huge music person, but I mean, I did choir and stuff, so we sang a lot of classical music, and I never thought about this. Like, all of our streaming services are designed around pop music. I mean, they all have, search by artist or search by album, and those are fairly modern constructs. Like, no one, I mean, I think of like Beethoven as he's a composer, but in like the modern CD jacket kind of way, he's not an artist. Like, it's not like, oh, I just picked up the new Beethoven. I mean, I know he's dead, but I mean, even then, like, you wouldn't have thought of it that way, because it's like, oh, this is Beethoven conducting the Munich orchestra and this is Beethoven conducting the Paris orchestra. Like it would be two completely different
They
things.
had a bigger trumpet section that day. I love this version. Or,
Right. Yeah, or this is Beethoven conducting these specific virtuosos who are also famous in their own right. So it's a really interesting problem, and I don't
because
know.
it's an art form that recognizes there's tons of people involved in making music instead of just the figurehead.
Yes, exactly that. But I don't know if anyone will bother to solve this problem, because you're talking about a niche market.
Hipsters rejoice. You get to go, you've probably never heard of this for an entire genre.
Hipsters. But I mean, like, who is going to take the time to solve this problem for virtually no profit? Right?
I don't know.
I mean,
artists are feeling the pain too, because people, the result of Spotify is, whether it's a symptom or a cause, is that people just don't pay for music much anymore.
Right.
Like, I think Weird Al won #1 album for selling like 100,000 copies. He would have been like in the 20th place 10 or 20 years ago for that amount of sales.
That was his first #1 on Billboard.
Yeah.
He got all choked up.
And apparently comedy albums are almost never #1.
Exactly. Yeah. So not only was it a #1 for him, but it was like almost a #1 for his entire genre.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, I mean, where would you go get it?
But as a niche neo-funk, weird avant-garde artist, you could still sell CDs. You would tour and you'd be able to sell $10 or $15 CDs on the road, and people don't even want to buy CDs anymore. And so you're like undiscoverable through streaming revenue, which doesn't pay very well anyway, even if you're an artist, because you're getting screwed in the new deals. And you also don't have your old 20th century model, because people don't want to buy CDs anymore.
So is part of the problem here the deal that your label makes with these companies? Because if you're the Boston Pops, can you just say, you know what, our music's available on streaming, but nobody's going to listen to it there, so we also sell it. And that's where, and people who want to buy classical music know people who
if you want the finest cheese, you can't just go to Kroger.
Take that, Kroger. But I mean, like, people who want to listen to the Boston Pops, it doesn't solve the discoverability, but I don't think it would hinder their sales. Like, if I go to Spotify and I can't find the Boston Pops or the London Symphony Orchestra, then I will go to Amazon MP3 or
But
iTunes.
I don't think people are making that leap of, I got to buy it now. I just don't buy stuff. And so since it's not on Spotify, I'm just not going to listen to it.
So you think for such a...
well, that's what the artists are saying in this article, that people aren't buying CDs like they used to.
See, I could see this being a problem going forward, but if 5 years ago I had to go buy classical albums because that was the only way to get it, nothing's changed for me as a consumer of classical music. I can't get it on streaming if I want to listen to it. So...
it's just most of you have changed.
Yes, I guess that's it. And I guess you could also argue that even for someone who has a history of buying these non-MTV albums, if they also like pop music and they've gotten into the world of streaming, then maybe they're like, maybe I just won't listen that much classical. Like, I'll just jazz, whatever. I'll just all Britney Spears all the time.
But I do think you brought up the agreements labels have been making, and that is definitely part of the problem, because they are able to define things in a way where I think a lot of the issues brought up in this article are the data sharing is not there. So you don't even know if you're getting screwed out of royalties because the way they report out on stuff.
Yeah, so is it that nobody's making money, or is it that only the label's making money, and you know that the artists are in the dark, but the label's like, no, we're going to make money?
I think labels are making a lot less money with streaming, and
going broke.
And then they're like, who do we cut off right away? Oh, the source of the only reason we exist.
Yeah. No, that's like using your crew to fill the holes in your ship. So, like, there's a hole in the wood, I'll just cram a crew member in there.
So I guess this article is interesting to me as an example of a concept I've been encountering in some other parts of tech, that disruption is not always good. It's just disruption.
Yeah.
And so streaming is awesome for us, but it may have unintended consequences on the art form, which maybe in 30 years will be like, it was all for the better. We're at this new place of awesomeness, but it's a kind of a painful transition for some.
It definitely is. And so that brings up two interesting points for me. The first one is, and I know I am not representative, so I'm just getting that out there. I am not the norm in this case. If I really want to, say, watch a particular TV show and it's not on one of the streaming services that I pay for, I don't torrent it. I just don't watch it.
Yeah.
So, like...
You're not entitled to it.
Right. But,
You're just angry at their bad business model.
Yeah. I mean, I'm entitled to be angry, but, like, I won't torrent it. I won't buy it if it's an amount of money I'm not willing to spend. And then if I'll wait and just stream it eventually. Like, the Lego Movie is a great example. Like, I really want to see that damn movie, but I don't want to buy it because I'm just not interested in owning it. Maybe I will.
How many movies do you watch more than once?
Not a lot.
It's a short list.
Yeah, so like, I don't want to buy
Ender's
it.
Game is on that list? No.
There are a few. But I mean, so I'm just like, oh, well, I guess I just don't get to watch it or listen to it or whatever. And I know most people don't feel that way. They end up torrenting it, or they, buy it and then they're not happy because it sits on the shelf forever. And then the other thing that kind of brings up the streaming thing is, and I can't remember where I first heard this argument, but the argument is these artists are not making a lot of money. But let's assume for a minute that if the labels cut them a fairer deal, or if the labels were not involved at all, they could make a living wage. Then the argument is that enough? And I've heard a lot of people who don't realize that their assumption is a musician should be rich, which is weird to me. Like, there are just certain things like actors, musicians, certain kinds of artists, that it's just like, well, if you wouldn't do that profession unless
it made you rich. You get a mansion, right?
Yeah. So it's just like a weird, like, are these artists, and I honestly don't know, but I mean, are they starving to death, or are they just not millionaires? Because if I could do something that I supposedly love and is my life passion and make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year.
I don't think they're making that much.
I don't think they are either, but I'm saying, like...
I think they're struggling to just work for Starbucks instead.
Yeah, but would they consider that a balance? Like, did they get into this industry with the assumption that they would eventually be rich, or would they be happy to live, like, a comfortable middle-class life? Because, I mean, I like what I do. I'm always willing to get paid more, but I know that psychologically, eventually you hit a point where you won't work any harder for more money. You need other, like, intrinsic benefits. So, if you're listening, anyone who can give me a raise, feel free to give me a raise. I'm just saying, I have not hit my cap
Your
yet.
threshold.
But, I mean, what do you think? Like, if you could just make music all day, but make exactly the amount of money you make doing your day job, would you just make music all day?
Maybe. Music's not the only thing I want to do, though.
That's fair. Okay. So would you do music for a living for the amount of money you make at your day job, I guess?
Maybe. Probably.
Yeah. And also Starbucks on weekends.
Yeah, Justin, keep making movies. I will do soundtracks.
There you go.
And start paying me.
So, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt our regularly scheduled broadcast. What is this cat?
I got it in Alaska at a gift shop, and it now sits on my desk. Okay. It's not a real cat for the listener.
It is not.
It is a soapstone. I don't know what it is.
I think it's like a resin mold.
Okay, a resin mold, says our resident geologist.
So, yeah, basically there's an adorable little sleeping cat.
Now I have to image some of this for the guests.
Yes, there will be a picture of the cat in the show notes for anyone who just can't give up their curiosity.
And I'll make sure the show notes don't explain it.
Yeah, just cat.
So we have a whole bunch of... So one of the things I did last week is I posted this ferocious, obnoxious-looking cat that was shrieking in horror with the question, what tables need to be flipped? And we got a few responses. And so maybe we can just pick from one of these. One was 3D movies. Someone wants us to flip that 2009 table. There's also just... let's see, what else is on this list? Oh, what's the best hamburger you've ever had?
That's a weird one.
Which is not really part of our main topics, but maybe we can explore that. And
I want to do 3D movies, though,
okay.
because I am firmly on the side of 3D movies are awesome. Knowing full well...
In current implementation?
Yes. Knowing full well that they make everything... That's fine. That's good. We're not just going to pat each other on the back and agree. But even though they make it darker, you know, they make the picture darker, you got to wear the stupid
it's a big
glass.
problem.
Yeah, no, these are issues, but I love the depth of field. I love it. Like, I didn't get the blues after I saw Avatar, like all those fake stories about people getting sad, but I thought that movie was... It was like a C+ movie, but it was like a B+ movie with the 3D because it was like, I'm there. I love it.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
When you played 3DS, did you leave the 3D
on? Most of the time. And the only reason I say not all the time is because a lot of time that I'm playing, I'm on the train, and the shaking means
you gotta be in the exact right spot.
Exactly. So that's an artifact of the technology, not me not appreciating the 3D.
So I think what gets me about 3D is that it's not 3D enough. That it's
a little uncanny valley.
That, you know, when you're zooming through Middle Earth, not only is the image darker, but it's like instead of like a full depth, it's here's 3 different layers. Here's the character as a flat thing. Here's the building they're near, and then there's the environment, and it's like a picture book.
Oh, yeah, like a diorama.
And so in a way, it makes big, vast views look small to me. And so it's actually less immersive. Because in 2D, I just don't think about it. There's only one layer now, but...
Right.
Yeah, and so it's like I want it to be more immersive.
I agree with you that I want it to be more immersive. Like, I definitely want to basically...
Holodeck.
Yeah, I want to basically go sit in the middle of the holodeck and watch a play unfold around me. But I don't... This is a technology I am not of the mindset that it's not worth it enjoying yet. And
So,
I have this argument with friends all the time. I have a couple friends who have like eye issues where they actually can't use the 3D glasses. And I found out during like the, crazy 3D movie craze of a few years ago that they make uni-shutter glasses. So for anybody who doesn't know how modern 3D technology works, basically you have 2 polarized lenses. So the image can only get to one eye on each side. So your left eye only sees the left image, right eye only sees the right image, even though it's not a close stereoscope like an Oculus Rift. Well, they make glasses that both lenses are just polarized the same way.
So you just don't get a 3D movie.
Exactly. But the thing is, you can buy these glasses for like $5 or $10 on like ThinkGeek. And then if all of your friends drag you to a 3D movie, you just put these on.
You're not going to be like, I'm going to save a few bucks. I'll see you after your version of the movie.
That's what I would do because they're way more expensive. And that's actually one of my few complaints is I don't care about the darkness and I don't see the 2D, Paper Mario stack. But the fact that a movie is $11 and a 3D version is like $18 is not cool.
Did you see The Hobbit in high frame rate?
I did not. Okay. Because the closest theater where I was living at the time was like a 35-mile drive, and it just was not that important to me.
Okay. I was going to see what you thought of that, because that's one of the...
I made a point to find out where the closest theater was. I wanted, because everybody was complaining about it, and they said it looked like soap opera smooth. And I was like, I'm going to see it in high frame rate. No, maybe not.
Well, that's the thing that people say will help 3D is higher frame rates, because you notice the blurriness of film a lot more. Because, say you see 3 layers and the character's moving in front, and it's got a natural motion blur from film being a slower frame rate and just being blurry, which is cinematic when you're watching normal movies. But for some reason, when it's like the background's in perfect focus, but this little layer in front is blurring across.
Yeah.
That's...
I guess I did not think about that. Because I either haven't noticed that or I haven't experienced it. in a movie yet. But I will tell you this. I got a new television not that long ago, and it had the terrible motion blur plus add-on thing.
That doesn't count. That's not real high frame rate. We already flipped that table, but
we did. But the movie that I bought the TV, and then like the next day, the first main thing I watched on it was the second Hobbit, and I was like 2 hours into this very long movie before I was just like, why does this look like crap? Like, I was so irritated. And I kept saying to Susan the entire time, I was like, this looks so bad. This looks so bad. It's no wonder people are ripping on this movie all the time. It looks so bad. And the reason I didn't notice before that is, one, I don't watch all that much television, and two, most of what I watch is actually cartoons. So something that's a flat color that's not moving a lot, you don't really notice this crap. And then we watched an episode of Breaking Bad, and I was like, this looks weird.
yeah.
Something's wrong with the TV. And then we watched The Hobbit, and I was like, no, something is wrong. And it's like, if 3D movies looked like that, you know, if they have that kind of buttery smoothness, that's unacceptable.
They sort of do, but it's a little less of like, I feel like the way TVs do the fake high frame rate is it feels very ghostly. It's like a bad computer monitor trailing.
Yeah, it does. It's everything's got the Windows 95 cursor.
And that's because
trail.
it's literally blurring fake frames in between everything that moves. But I mean, I think there'd be a slight recognition of, like, your body wants to go, ugh, this is a soap opera. But it's not as ghosty. It's like, oh no, they actually shot it at a high frame rate. It's weird, but it's not that bad.
Right. So what do you think about I've heard people say that ultra high frame rates make fake things look faker.
Yes, they do.
Do you have any idea why that is? Is it because before the blurring was obscuring fine details and now you can see them?
I don't know, like, the scientific reason, but it just looks more like props. You're just like, that's not a real axe. That's a plastic axe or whatever.
Well, I heard it was Gandalf's staff, which I presume is some kind of plastic or resin mold or something. I got to say resin mold twice in the same podcast. How weird. But it's probably not wood, because I mean it's a very particular shape, and I think it's got power because the little crystal on top lights up.
Because they want to be able to pour some mold into the shape of his staff.
Exactly. I doubt they spent the time. Even Peter Jackson did not grow a plant and shape it that way. So I heard a lot of people, because I mean, he's on screen a lot in The Hobbit. Like, he plays a really big role.
He's way too much for what the story actually
That's true.
has.
But I mean, people were saying, like, his staff just looked like a toy. They're like, it's almost like watching G.I. Joe, where you're like, I know I can go to the store and buy that staff.
I think it's the high frame rate. It's sort of like you're watching an older BBC production. Like, have you ever seen like the Narnia BBC productions?
Maybe back in
and
the
you're
day.
like, it's so obviously on a stage, and it's like very simple sets, and you're like, yeah, that's not a real lamppost.
I get So we're definitely teetering on the edge of an uncanny valley suspension of disbelief kind of problem.
So will animation and digital finally cross that bridge because we'll be sick of props looking bad?
Well, but I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I've gone to a lot of plays and seen a lot of stage musicals and stuff, and I mean, you're in a theater watching a play, you can see the curtain even like in your periphery, but that all just kind of like fades away and you get immersed into the action of the story. But it sounds like we've hit that point now where it's like things are so real that they're not real enough.
Hyper real.
Yes. They need to be more realer so that you cross the I know I'm watching a movie boundary.
Mm-hmm. So to bridge off this topic of immersion, there's another thing that a listener brought up was the idea of, so we talked last episode about how some people disable YouTube videos for mobile.
Yeah, and they suck.
Yeah. One set of people that might do that for artistic reasons is filmmakers that don't want you to watch stuff on a 4-inch screen. They want you to see it on a TV or a big screen of some kind.
Yes. This to me falls pretty close to the, well, I don't really want you to stream this movie, so I'll only sell it to you as a collector's edition DVD. So unless you're willing to have this stupid little plastic circle sit on your shelf, you don't get to see this movie. Because it's their product, their thing that they birthed into the universe. So I understand they want to have control over how it's consumed, but think about this with books. Can you imagine if a publisher said, this is a Chase book? Like, you have to, if you're sitting in like a lazy boy, no, you can't read this book. You have to be reclining on a chaise because then you get the right mood and tone.
If there was actually a practical way to enforce that, do you think some authors wouldn't try to?
No, they totally would.
Well, there's a nice video I included in the show notes of it's David Lynch saying why, and this was back in like '08, so when iPhone and Android phones were still kind of a new thing, basically saying you can't be immersed in a movie if it's on a 4-inch screen. And that you can watch it as many times as you want and think you're getting it, but you are not experiencing the movie. He's basically saying you're not experiencing the movie. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean that...
I'm just going to tell you how you experienced it.
Does he at any point declare what would qualify as experiencing it? Because this to me sounds like the remove an atom from the table problem, So it's like...
What if I add another inch?
What if it's a 9-inch screen or a 10-inch screen? At 11 inches, am I experiencing the movie?
It's one of those... He's pretty sure the phone size is not it.
I mean, he doesn't have to have he should have all the answers, but he doesn't have to.
David Lynch does not have all the answers.
Damn it, David Lynch. But I mean, let me say, I'm on his side in theory. I also agree that watching a movie on a phone is terrible, and I never do it. In fact, I've been on plane rides where I realized I didn't charge my tablet, or I thought I downloaded some podcast and I didn't, and I have like a video file or something on my phone. I'm like, no, I'd rather stare out the window. I would rather actually just stare out the window than try and watch a movie on my phone. Mm-hmm. So I'm on his side in theory. But if somebody wants to watch a crappy movie on their phone, I think I mentioned before, one of my friends is in the military and she has a lot of downtime where she's allowed to do whatever she wants. So she carries like a ton of TV shows and stuff around on her phone.
Because it's better than nothing?
Because, it's better than staring at the sky for hours.
The movie projector you have with you
is the best. That's right. Yeah, so I mean, like, if she was a huge David Lynch fan, it would be a bummer if she couldn't get his movies and watch them on her.
But that seems like a niche, but...
Right, but I mean, there are lots of people who watch movies on their phone. But I'd hate to have,
like, worked for a year or more crafting a cinematic experience, and then people kind of glance at it on a phone and go, man, it was all right. And I'm like...
Is this not the exact same argument as the Pono music player? Or maybe. At least really close?
Maybe. I mean, as someone who puts out music, it does break my heart that people will probably hear it streaming on a crappy laptop speaker with no bass and no dynamic range, and it's just like squealing out of this high pitched. And so you spend hours making, EQing and mixing this thing to be glorious, and then it's just gonna come out of this tinny piece of crap. So breaks my heart a little bit. No real practical way to say. I mean, like, it's the classic thing because I get demos or I share stuff with other people. Is this sentence appears in musicians' emails a lot of like, use headphones or like, go to your favorite car or stereo. Like, please give this a real listen. Not don't just play it on your phone in the palm of your hand.
Yeah. This sounds like my hand. This is awful.
And so I get the urge to, because you want to control the experience. I mean, you've already gone through so many steps of controlling it up to that point of deciding what is in the experience that it's tempting to want to go completely whole hog and say, I'm going to strap you to this chair. Don't move your head. This is the sweet spot in the cone of audio, and don't look away. And like, you can get abusive, but that's the urge. Is like, I already put so much effort into controlling this, and now you're ruining it. You get the last mile and you're ruining it.
Yeah, I guess as someone someone who hasn't really produced anything artistically, it's difficult for me to relate to, like, controlling so much of the process, but then not the last.
Imagine you
little
made
bit.
large, like, wall-sized paintings, and 90% of the people only experienced it through crappy Instagram filtered photos.
Yeah.
And you just kind of be like, stop sepia toning my shit.
Do
Please.
you think one of the bad side effects of this is that artists of any kind become aware of how their content is being consumed, and then they start playing to that? I mean, there's no way that stage didn't change when it became movies, and then movies didn't change when it became television. Like, TV shows and movies are very different things, and I presume it's because they started playing to that last mile, you know? You could make a television show that was exactly like a movie. Sherlock, or I think
Yeah.
True Detective is
I
kind
love
of the
it.
same. Yeah, it's freaking awesome. But I wouldn't want every TV show to be like that. I
I
can't.
don't want Seinfeld to be 90 minutes.
Exactly. Like, Seinfeld is great for being Seinfeld, but I also don't want to watch a 3-hour Seinfeld movie. I just want like a 22-minute, like, boom, Seinfeld, done.
Have you liked any of the Simpsons movies?
Movies?
Simpsons movie, I guess.
Okay, I was going to say, could there possibly be ones I didn't know about?
There's lots of Family Guy movies. There's one
Yes.
Simpsons movie.
No, I did like the Simpsons movie, and I like the Family Guy movies. But the Simpsons movie came... I'm a huge Simpsons fan, and they came dangerously close to just making a 90-minute episode. They did do a little more than they could have
A
done.
$10 90-minute episode.
Yeah. They did do a little more than they could have done in one episode. And Family Guy has actually been very careful to make their movies have like a little bit deeper or more interesting story than they could do in 3 30-minute episodes. So, you know, they're still aware, like, oh, this can't just be a really long episode, because then we will lose people. We have to actually make it deeper and like a richer world.
We must go deeper.
So, kind of tying into the 4-inch screen thing, do you think, what about the opposite? Like, I joked about, like, what screen is then big enough? Like, so do you actually go to movies? Do you go to movie
I
theaters?
do go to theaters because they're overpriced, whatever. Most movies aren't worth it, but I love being in the theater. And you can, it's getting to the point where you can create a lot of that at home, but not a good theater, like a really good theater.
So
is great.
for you, it's like the whole experience.
Yeah.
It's not just the big screen and loud speakers.
Yeah. Which sometimes are too loud, but
That's very true.
I
Cloverfield, man, that movie was mixed like all the way
never
up.
see Transformers in theaters, but
Oh, headache just
never
thinking
see
about it.
Transformers. That sentence is over right there.
Period.
Yeah, I love theater experiences, and I should be, if I were more frugal, it would be like only like the new Spielberg or the new, the
new Lego
big
movie.
movie that comes out every couple of years that's like so worth seeing in theaters should be the only stuff I go to, but I probably go to 10, 15 movies a year in theaters.
All right. So at least one a month. I mean,
Probably
on
on average. It's
Yeah, because
like
there's the summer
Christmas you see like
blockbusters.
4.
Right.
And then,
So that's interesting to me, because I'm with you on the theater experience. I cannot get past the cost. The cost of going to see, and it's totally out of the question now because I have an infant at home, but but long before I had an infant at home, I had already been like, no, movies are too expensive. Now, I have made plenty of exceptions, but as the TV in my house has gotten bigger and the theater experience has gotten cheapened, I'm shifting more.
theaters know this. Have you seen those theater ads that are like, it starts out with this big war scene and it shrinks down to a TV and it's like, you can't experience this on a TV. And I'm like, are you really self-conscious, theater? Are
Yeah.
you really worried?
Yeah, you got a sock in the front of your jeans there. Like, no, man, you got to come in here and check out my big screen and my big speakers. And I mean, I'm in kind of a weird place where I'm very aware of the difference between Kobe beef and a McDonald's hamburger. But sometimes I'm just like, I could do a McDonald's hamburger. That's fine. Right. And I mean, I don't think the extremes are quite that dramatic. Like the average theater experience is a lot of screaming schmucks who won't shut the hell up for a single second.
Okay, so that's one thing. I never go opening weekend on Blockbuster movies. Well, I go on a Tuesday 2 weeks later.
Exactly. And Tuesday at like 2:30 in the afternoon. Yeah, that's the way to do it. But I mean, even then, it's just, I like 3D movies. I used to go to a lot of IMAX movies because you got the bigger screen and the richer sound and everything. And it's just a lot of freaking money.
Yeah.
Like a lot of money. And, as time went on, like the TV that I had at home, like the picture got sharper, the screen got a little bit bigger. And
you can pause it. You can make popcorn that costs you cents on the dollar.
Which actually, funny you should mention pausing. I try really hard not to do that when I'm at home. And this is kind of a weird tangent thing, but more than once I have caught myself, because my kitchen and my living room are on 2 different floors. More than once I have caught myself running upstairs during a movie or a television show to like refill my water, to like get something out of the fridge, and sprinting back down the stairs. And I'm like, just pause it. You can pause it. This is your house. You have full control. But I have I don't know if it's just from a lifetime of not being able to pause things like on live TV, but I have this aversion to pausing things. It's
No, that'll happen if Shelby goes to grab something and I pause it on her behalf and she's like, don't pause it, just let it go.
Yes. Soon the same thing. Like, no, you don't have to pause it and wait for me. And I'm like, but you're leaving and you're gonna miss it. But then if I'm alone and I'm leaving,
and I'm gonna be responsible to tell you what happened.
Exactly. But I mean, she doesn't care. But then if I'm alone and I could totally pause it without having to discuss it with anyone, and only I will stand to benefit, for some reason I do the sprint up and down the stairs. So it's people are dumb. I am dumb and I'm a person and people are dumb.
That's the conclusion.
It is. So what would be, could you guess, like, would you have to have surround sound at home and a 60-inch television before you would say, like, movie theaters can wait? Would you have to have one of the big red recliner chairs with a cup rest?
I think definitely as my home environment gets better, that it'll be more of a conflict of, I can find plenty of great movies to watch at home, or I could pay $20 for that one.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the new Christopher Nolan movie, so no, I'm not going to the theater.
Is there a social thing at all for you? Like,
no, I don't think going to movies is very social at all.
But I mean more like the vibe you get at being at a live sporting event. Like, I don't know any of the people around me, but
I hate it when people are cheering and hooting and hollering and cackling. So unless it's I guess if it's a comedy, maybe that adds to the experience.
So basically, as soon as you have a nice enough TV, theaters are dead to you.
If I decide to invest in that, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I have fond memories of being in college and going to see, like, the new Pirates of the Caribbean, and, like, Superman Returns came out when I was in college, and, we went to, like, midnight shows as a group, and, like, you wait in line, and so even though you sit quietly during the movie, and I want everyone in the theater to shut the hell up so I can watch the movie, but you have, like...
I feel like that's also, like, a late teenage, early 20s, thing that when you get in your late 20s and into your 30s, you're like, oh, they're going to be late. I hate that. We have to pick them up. They're all saying maybe.
Yeah.
And just all the things that are like you put up with when you're younger and want lots of friends. Older, you're just like, I ain't no one got time for that shit. I'm going to go on my own terms or I'm going to stay home.
Yeah, you're probably right. So that's probably one of those things I have really fond memories of and would hate now. Like, if I actually did it, I would just, the whole time I'd just be like...
That one friend to drag their ass over.
Yeah. You're just making me tired thinking about it.
People make you miss not just trailers, but even the beginning of the movie. Like,
no. I think I've mentioned this before, but when I saw The Dark Knight... because that was a midnight show and a bunch of us got together. We're all big nerds. So it was like, gotta go see a superhero movie, midnight show. And we're in there and the Joker gets knocked down. You think Gordon's dead. And then the SWAT guy has like his foot on Joker's neck and he's got the gun pointed at him, and then he pulls off the mask and you see, holy shit, Gordon's actually alive. The crowd went nuts. And he says something.
and you don't get to hear it.
I did not get to hear it. And that really...
Yeah, I hate that.
Took me out of the moment. I was now I'm very aware that I'm watching a movie, because it would be weird for me and these 400 people to be standing on the street corner watching this happen. So it was like, it not only was it personally frustrating, but it did actually dampen the experience. And to me, that's actually a strike against the theater.
Yeah. Definitely, because that whole thing is just the economy of selling the movie. They have to pack hundreds of people in.
Sure.
And they'll pretend it's for the experience. And yeah, for select films and genres, it is a group experience. But I think if they could sell individual viewings of full theater experiences, practically, they probably would.
Oh, you know what that means. VR helmet.
If it's high res enough.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. You go into a big room...
But I want to feel like I'm wearing something.
So it could be on a rig so that you don't feel the weight. But I mean, this is logistics, Mike. Big picture stuff right now. So you got, the visor. So it looks great. You have speakers, right up to your ears, headphones, you might call them. And then,
these speakers, they put really close to your ears.
Right up. So then, you have a perfect distribution of sound. You got the 3D thing where, truck drives by and sounds like it's going past. That would be awesome. Like, that I would pay $15 for. Or eventually I'd probably just buy one and have it in my house.
Yep.
And then, yeah. So... yeah, I'm struggling to think of a reason to leave the house.
Well, now I got to find the article, because Christopher Nolan talked about the future of theater, or not theater, the future of movie theaters.
Okay.
And he doesn't think they're going away, but he recognizes it's changing and people aren't going to be willing to go out for as wide a variety of films. It's going to have to be more of a spectacle, more of an experience. But he had some interesting comments about it. He loves the theater. He loves making movies that people want to go to theaters to see.
Yeah.
And I'd say his films are pretty great in theaters.
They are, yeah. So here's a weird thing I just thought of. Have you ever noticed in movies that are period pieces about the early 1900s, like when movie theaters were new, that people and I don't know how accurately this reflects life, but people in movie theaters in the 20s and 30s are always shown to be treating the movie like it's a play. Like, they make a point of laughing uproariously, and they clap and they cheer, like as if the people on the screen could hear them. Whereas now, and for our entire lives, that's been considered like very rude. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, I'm trying to watch. Can you not applaud for the flat screen with the projection
Except for
on
comic
it?
book movies that people still cheer.
They do, yeah, which is annoying. But I've been at movies where people cheered, or not comic book movies, where people cheered, or they're laughing way too hard, like they want the actors to know they appreciate them. Because, I mean, you laugh differently when it's a social cue and you expect other people to respond to your laughter, and I get that, but...
when you're at Jimmy Fallon live, it's different.
Yeah, and the laughter sign's going off, and everybody's laughing, and he's waiting for you to laugh, like there's a pause, and he's going to wait. That's different than a movie. It's just... it's weird. Like,
until we have digital movies that can react to the audience.
Yeah. That's just called stage theater. Like, that's you just go see a stage play with live people. But so when do you think that split happened? Or was it never really acceptable and that's just something for the movies? Are any of our listeners in their 90s?
Any of our listeners love yelling and clapping in theaters, and why do you want me to hate you?
Yes. There have been times where I've like pointed and laughed and I'm like, yes, that character just did that thing. Yes, he did. But
I like that after that movie.
Few.
Yeah. Or after that movie trailer of the movie that looks so bad, every once in a while I'll call out like, God Save Us All from that.
But yeah, but even then, you're waiting until the trailer's over. There's
Yeah,
a pause.
true.
You're not talking over anything. You may still be irritating people that you talked, but you're at least not talking over
Okay,
something.
here's an exception to crowd making any noise at all being automatically bad.
Okay.
Is when you go see a movie, maybe it's a movie you thought would be good, whatever reason you're in the theater, it's terrible. And the crowd turns against it.
So everyone agrees it's terrible.
Yeah, that can be a communal win for catcalling a movie or whatever.
Yeah. I've definitely had that experience.
Because you're just MST3K in the movie now
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, I've definitely had that experience small scale. Like, a bunch of friends decide to watch a movie, and like an hour in, you all silently agree it's crap, and you start just ripping it to shreds. I don't know if I've ever had that happen in a public theater, but now I want it to happen because it sounds like fun.
Or to me, it's like every comic book movie, or especially it's a comic book movie sin, is villain says snarky line early in the movie. Hero will say it back to them at the end of the movie when the tables have turned.
It's very action movie trope.
And I can't stand that.
Is that on your list of unacceptable?
It's obnoxious. We should bring my brother back on to talk about all these, but hate that one. And so if someone had a snarky line to yell after it, I would be okay with that because I already hate that.
I'm already mad at you. You might as well take me out of the experience. The one I'm thinking of right now is you either live long enough to... You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And it's like the second you said villain says it and then the hero echoes it back, I was like, that happens in The Dark Knight.
Or that's the cliched. I can't talk today.
The Crusade.
You're not so different. We're not so different, you and I.
Yeah.
Villain always has that speech.
Yep.
And it happens in even like otherwise great filmmakers let it slip into their scripts, like the David Fincher Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Bad guy freaking says that at the end of the movie. I'm like, no, you trap and rape girls. You're not
we're
the same
pretty
as this
different.
journalist that decided to stop you.
Yeah. Was again, actually, in The Dark Knight, the Joker's little, when he's like hanging upside down at the end, spoilers, Batman wins if you haven't seen The Dark Knight. But he's like hanging upside down by his foot, and he has a "we're not so different, you and I" speech, but it's written and delivered well enough that it's enjoyable, but still is obvious that it's like hearkening back to the "we're not so different, you and I" in handcuffs, getting into the back of the paddy wagon. Like, that to me is I don't know what the artsy term for it is, but it's almost like an homage, right? Because it's cliche,
It's
but
winking
done.
at the trope.
Yeah, a cliche that's done well, I think, is an homage. If a cliche that's done poorly is a cliche.
Yeah, and it's not because like films always have to be this shining jewel no one's ever seen before. Like,
Agreed.
Like the mechanics of storytelling require things to happen in certain ways. It's the hero's journey. You won't believe he's motivated if he isn't reluctant first, because you see him overcome the reluctance,
Right.
And now you understand his motivation. All that stuff is the mechanics of making a film, but some of the just on its face, so blatantly tropey stuff gets old.
Yeah. So we talked about streaming music. So first I'll ask, do you purchase music?
Not as much as I used to, but yes.
But you do still. And do you buy physical or digital?
Almost always digital.
Okay, good man.
Because when you're buying physical, you're still buying digital. Just
true.
buying it in a less convenient form, unless you're buying vinyl. But
Yeah. Well, but I mean, but you don't go buy CDs or 8 tracks
No.
or whatever the kids are listening to.
I don't buy plastic that I have to do something with.
Good man. Okay, so then what about movies?
For the longest time, I've had a very high threshold of it has to be a movie I think I'm going to watch a lot, or I don't buy it.
That's fair.
Because most movies, like music gets re-listened unless it's terrible. It gets listened to many, many times. Movies do not get watched many times unless they're like Blade Runner or something.
So I guess you go into... I mean, do you feel that way about music in general? Or do you have like a lower threshold for what constitutes re-listenable. Like, have you ever heard an album that you were like, I heard that once, I am now done?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Because to me, I would constitute that as bad music. Like, an album I only wanted to listen to exactly once, I would say was a bad album.
But that doesn't mean it's a bad movie.
Exactly, yeah. Movie you could see once and just be like, good, I have seen that.
Yeah, well, I mean, music is meant to be repeated. Well, maybe that some people would dispute that, but to me, it tolerates that so much more. And a movie, your first experience tends to be. No, I'm going to contradict myself. Great movies get better with more viewings.
Because you notice more stuff.
Just like great music is great with more listens.
Yeah. Man, we're all over the place on our opinion about this.
Maybe it's just the cost of entry because a song is usually 3 minutes. So
true.
You'll check it out way more.
Yeah, you might buy an album that you only listen start to finish once or twice, but you listen to songs you like over and over. You would probably not fire up Blade Runner just to watch the Tears in the Rain scene.
That's like once a year kind of movie.
But I mean, even so, like, I love Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, but I would not just watch 5 minutes of it.
You don't have a playlist on your phone that you listen through as you do
random
your morning
scenes.
workout.
Exactly.
We got to shuffle some Indiana Jones this morning.
And yet, saying that out loud, I would not be surprised to find out that there are teenagers and preteens right now who do exactly what I just described on YouTube. They have clips from movies they love, and they just have like a playlist of those clips, and they watch them divorced from the movie. I'm not saying that's how we're going to ingest this content going forward, but I bet there are people who do that. Like,
and maybe it's like a multitasking thing, like they're doing something else and they just like having these awesome scenes going.
Yeah. A friend of mine used to have to make these long drives like 2 or 3 times a month. I mean, like 4 or 5, 6 hour drives. So he would put several of his favorite comedy movies onto his iPod. And I mean, there was a little tiny screen, but then he had it face down in the passenger seat connected to his car stereo, and he would just listen to the audio. Because, like, he knew the movies so well. He was like, I can imagine their faces and what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And really, 90% of that comedy, because it was all, like, old Kevin Smith stuff, it was like 90% of the comedy is all in what you're hearing. You don't really have to see Dante's face to get it. So he was like, I can quote Clerks literally cover to cover because I have heard it 100 times. I've only seen it, like, 3 times. But, I don't know. Like, it's a movie. There's like a way you're supposed to ingest it and a way you're not. And with music, you have a little more freedom, I guess.
The form factor, the format lends itself to repeating way better. But scenes and movies, the remix culture could change that for film, or maybe already has.
I wonder, do you ever watch The Guild?
No, but that's
Felicia Day's. Yeah. And Dr. Horrible was also like a web series thing.
Definitely saw that.
Yeah, so Dr. Horrible was strung together very coherently. Like, if you didn't know that they were webisodes or whatever you call it, you would watch it and think that it was designed as one coherent project. Whereas The Guild, which I think I've only seen chunks of it, but there's a really clear start-stop to every episode. So when you watch it like on Netflix and they're all like laced together, you know exactly when an episode ended and when another is beginning because there's like an eye catch and a little musical interlude. So it's like super obvious that they are meant to be viewed in 3-minute chunks, and it's a little tiring.
And is it really even continuous? It's more like these characters are constant?
Oh, no, it's continuous.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, is if you took those eye catches out, you could probably make it feel more
Which
like
Netflix is starting to do.
They are. They are.
Yes. They actually screw it up sometimes because I've had shows where they stop putting the intro and it starts the next episode in the middle of the episode, like 30 seconds in. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, every once in a while it screws up. It works really well with like serialized cartoons. If you watch like anime or The Simpsons or whatever, because the opening is like a predictable length. Yeah. There's never anything.
They need to do that with House of Cards because that is as beautiful as that photography is. It's like 2 minutes.
It is.
Which reminds me of one of the things I keep meaning to do, and I'll wait till the next season comes out, is I was playing around with every time that theme comes on, the House of Cards theme, I just imagine some like glorious diva voice like singing, and of course the only words would be like, "It's a House of Cards." It'd be like really, really obnoxiously on the nose.
So you're gonna record terrible lyrics to go.
Yeah,
over that?
like really bad on the nose, like literal lyrics about houses of cards. And it'd be like, like a bad Bond.
That's
intro
exactly what I was
song.
thinking. Yeah. Oh.
And so I keep meaning to, I tried to do it and I didn't get it done, and then it was by then all the buzz had passed for season 2.
Oh, so you have to strike when the iron's hot.
Yeah, you gotta post your really stupid video when everyone cares about House of Cards.
So now the main question is: are you going to find a talented lady singer, or are you going to do
I think it's
horrible
better
falsetto?
if it's bad.
Horrible falsetto. Okay, I'm excited for this.
So I guess
Come on, Kevin Spacey. Get
guess
the
I
lead
have to
out.
do that now.
You do. You've committed to it. This is an ironclad contract. So I think there was actually something on the rundown that we don't have time to talk about, but I want to talk about the permission communication channels thing, because I think that's like an interesting tech thing. So here's like a teaser for the next time we talk about this. And I kind of want to know people's opinions, but like these communication channels, like we have really different feelings toward like texting versus email and stuff. And I'm not going to let you get away with this because it got lost in the rundown of like music and movies. And that's okay because it's coming back. I can copy paste.
Is this the whole, like the picture I posted of like, no Wi-Fi, talk to people, pretend it's 1996.
That was funny.
Call your mom.
Yes, we need to put that into the show notes because the ad reducto absurdum in play there was
I love my scroll.
It's just so excellent. Yeah, so Mike, where can people find you on the internet?
Find me on Twitter at medwardsmusic or online at pseudomichael.com.
One day you'll get that straightened out. But it is not this day.
It is not this day. And you.
People can find me at Lyons in Beta on Twitter, lyonsinbeta.com, or plus David Lyons on Google+. And I looked. I was all excited because now that they dropped the real name thing on Google+, I was like, oh, I can use my like little brand thing.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot change your vanity URL. Set in stone.
Yep.
So I could change my display name to whatever I want. I could make my name Crap Bag, like in that old episode of Friends. First name Crap, last name Bag. But I cannot change my vanity URL. So
It's a shame.
the best laid plans.
Yeah.
What about these awesome show notes?
Yeah, so check out our show notes at flippingtablespodcast.com/024. And we're also on YouTube now, so if you search for Flipping Tables Podcast on YouTube. Some people apparently use YouTube as a radio, which I've known for music, but I apparently podcast also. Now we're doing it. So.
Yeah, it's this was one of those things that, because I'm not old. We are not old. We will be old one day. Right now, we are not that old. And this was one of those things that made me feel old because I actually caught myself saying, well, a lot of kids use YouTube that way, like as if they were a separate group of people. Oh.
Is YouTube still less than 10 years old? It's close. It's about 10 years old.
Let's see. Quick Google foo.
I think it was like 0405.
2005, yes!
It's still less than, it's not double digits yet. But next year, man.
Yeah, February 14th, so it's coming up pretty soon.
That's one of those things is YouTube has always been younger than you think it is. Pretty soon it's going to be, no, that thing's old.
Yeah, you remember what you watched videos on before YouTube? I don't.
Random ass websites that didn't play videos very well.
E-Bombs World?
Yeah, totally E-Bombs World. G.I. Joe PSAs at E-Bombs World.
Oh, man. I see. Now there is an excellent example of something where I would just queue up a YouTube playlist of all of those and just watch them rapid fire. I don't care if they're meant to be taken separately. I would just watch the whole playlist.
Who wants a body massage? Ooh.
Oh no. Okay, so I think feedback for this episode. I think we need, do you go to movie theaters? Do you watch movies on your phone? Are you a yuppie about 3D movies, or do you?
And how are you now that we have all these different options? How do you listen to us? What are you going to start using YouTube?
Yeah,
Do you actually subscribe to the podcast?
Yeah, I'm impressed and happy as a technologist with how many people still use RSS. Because a couple of our listeners did actually reach out to me and were like, "Hey, your your RSS feed didn't update this past week, when we had to do the switch. So what's up with that? And my immediate reaction was like, oh no, I'm sorry, it didn't work. But then very shortly after that, I was like, yay, people still use RSS.
Yeah.
Because it's a good technology. We should keep using it. It serves a very real purpose. Real simple syndication. It's why we have it. So anyway.
Except for Adam, get out of here.
Nobody likes your style.
All right, that's it. We're out.
Bye.